The massive starship Pathfinder drifted silently through the void, its sleek metallic hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Inside the main control room, Captain Rox leaned forward in his command chair, his four eyes narrowing as he studied the holographic display before him. "What do you mean, impossible readings?" he asked, his voice sharp with disbelief. Officer Mick, the ship's chief science officer, adjusted her sensory appendages nervously. "The data is clear, Captain. Planet 3 in this system shows conditions that exceed our classification system. We would need to categorize it as a Class 15 Deathworld." A murmur spread through the bridge crew. No one had ever documented anything beyond a Class 12 before. "Show me," Rox ordered. The hologram shifted, displaying a blue and green sphere swirling with white clouds. It looked almost peaceful from space, but the data scrolling alongside told a different story. Extreme temperature variations from -60 to +50 units, Mick explained. Constant electrical storms. Massive tectonic instability with numerous active volcanic zones. The atmosphere contains oxygen, a highly corrosive gas, mixed with other toxic elements. Liquid water covers most of the surface, with deadly pressure zones in the deeper regions. Captain Rox shook his head. "No life could evolve in such conditions. Check your equipment." "Already did, sir. 3 times. And there's more." Mick hesitated. "We're detecting artificial signals, thousands of them, across multiple frequencies." The bridge fell silent. "Impossible," whispered First Officer Taz. "No species could survive long enough in those conditions to develop technology." But the evidence was undeniable. As the Pathfinder moved closer, they detected primitive orbital structures, crude satellites, and even basic spacecraft moving between the planet and its natural satellite. "The planet is inhabited," Captain Rox said, his voice hollow with shock. "Scanned for life forms." Minutes later, the results came in. Mick stared at her display, mandibles clicking in disbelief. "Captain, there are billions of them. The dominant species appears to be bipedal, carbon-based, with internal fluid circulation systems. They require oxygen for their metabolic processes. They breathe corrosive gas." First Officer Taz asked. "Not only that," Mick continued, "they appear to have evolved on this death trap. They're native to it." Captain Rox stood up, his usually confident posture now uncertain. "This changes everything. Contact Central Command immediately. We need to report this discovery and request instructions." As the communications officer hurried to obey, Rox moved to the observation window, staring at the deadly blue planet growing larger in their view. What kind of creatures could not only survive but thrive in such an environment? He wondered aloud. And what would such a species be like if they ever left their world? The answer came sooner than expected. As they established orbit, their sensors detected a primitive vessel approaching from the planet's surface. Inside were several of the native creatures, sealed in protective gear that seemed laughably inadequate by galactic standards. "They're hailing us," the communications officer reported with surprise. "Basic radio waves carrying a repeating mathematical sequence. It appears to be a greeting." Captain Rox felt a shiver run through his body. The creatures from the Deathworld had noticed them, and instead of hiding or attacking, were attempting communication. "Record everything," he ordered. "The Council needs to know immediately. We have discovered something unprecedented, a species that considers a Class 15 Deathworld to be home." On the view screen, the primitive vessel drew closer, carrying beings who had conquered conditions that should have rendered life impossible. The first contact with humans was about to begin. The meeting room aboard the Pathfinder had been specially prepared according to the ship's xenobiologists' best guesses. Temperature adjusted to match the Deathworld's moderate zones. Air mix altered to include the corrosive oxygen these creatures somehow required. Gravity set slightly lower than the crushing pull of their home planet. Captain Rox paced nervously, his exoskeleton clicking softly against the floor. "Are the translation systems ready?" he asked for the third time. Officer Lin nodded. Yes, Captain. We've analyzed their radio transmissions and developed a basic language matrix. Communication will be rough but possible. A soft alarm sounded. The humans had docked their primitive craft and were preparing to enter. Remember, Rox told his crew, no sudden movements. We have no idea how a species from such a hostile environment might react to perceived threats. The door slid open, and 3 humans entered the room. They were tall by galactic standards, bipedal, with only 2 eyes and strange patches of fur on parts of their bodies. Their skin was alarmingly thin and exposed, with no natural armor visible. Yet they moved with surprising grace despite the alien environment. The lead human stepped forward. It was wearing a blue uniform with small metal pieces attached to it. I am Commander Jack Wells of Earth Space Command. We come in peace and friendship. The translation came through clearly, and Rox felt a wave of relief. I am Captain Rox of the Galactic Survey Ship Pathfinder *. We also seek peaceful contact. The human's face changed shape, pulling back to reveal white, hard structures in its mouth. The xenobiologist had explained this was called smiling and indicated positive emotions, not aggression. This is historic, Commander Wells said. Humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. The meeting progressed with cautious exchanges of basic information. The humans seemed unnaturally calm about meeting beings from another world. Rox wondered if perhaps they didn't understand the significance. During a pause in the conversation, Science Officer Mick approached with a data tablet. Captain, may I ask our guests about their planet? She whispered. Rox nodded. Mick turned to the humans. Our scans show your world has extreme conditions, powerful storms, earthquakes, temperature swings, dangerous wildlife, and toxic substances. How does your species survive? The 3 humans looked at each other, then laughed. The sound was sharp and jarring, making several crew members flinch. Sorry, Commander Wells said, noticing their reaction. It's just that we don't think of Earth as dangerous. It's just home. But the conditions, Mick began. We adapt, said another human, a female named Dr. Anna Green. Storms. We build strong shelters. Cold. We make warm clothes. Predators. We learn to protect ourselves. It's just how we live. Captain Rox couldn't hide his amazement. Our scans indicate your technology is still developing. Yet you've achieved spaceflight while contending with your planet's hostility. Commander Wells shrugged, a casual movement of his upper limbs that the translator couldn't interpret. Maybe because of it, not despite it, he suggested. Challenges make us innovative. We solve problems because we have to. The 3rd human, Technical Officer Tom Rivera, added, we climb mountains because they're there. We cross oceans because they're in our way. We fly to space because we looked up and wondered what's beyond. Captain Rox exchanged glances with his crew. These creatures didn't just survive their Deathworld. They were shaped by it, driven by it. We would like to learn more about your people, Rox said carefully, and perhaps you would like to learn about the wider galaxy. Commander Wells smiled again. That's why we're here. To learn, to explore, to make new friends. As the meeting continued, Captain Rox couldn't shake a growing feeling. These humans, these Deathworlders, weren't just another species to catalog. They represented something the galaxy had never seen before, life that thrived on challenge rather than avoided it. The implications were both exciting and terrifying. The Central Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy. The massive circular room, designed to host representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations, had never been so full. Today's emergency session had drawn delegates from even the most distant systems. High Counselor Zet, a tall being with iridescent scales and 6 limbs, called the meeting to order with a sharp tap of his ceremonial staff. We are gathered to discuss the recent discovery in System X-27, he announced, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. Captain Rox of the survey ship *, Pathfinder *, has documented a Class 15 Deathworld inhabited by an intelligent species who call themselves humans. Holographic images appeared above the center of the chamber, pictures of Earth's raging oceans, violent storms, erupting volcanoes, and barren deserts. Then came images of humans living in these environments, building cities beside active fault lines, sailing across treacherous seas, and even climbing snow-covered mountains for recreation. "This is impossible," shouted Delegate Purr from the Soft Worlds Alliance. "No species could evolve intelligence in such conditions." Captain Rock stepped forward, looking tired after weeks of first contact duties. "Not only did they evolve there, but they appear uniquely adapted to constant change and stress. They call their adaptation resilience, the ability to recover from or adjust to difficulties." Medical Officer Jor, the Pathfinder's chief xenobiologist, joined him with her own report. "Their biology is fascinating," she explained. "Their bodies heal from injuries that would kill most species. They can survive for days without water, weeks without food. They can adapt to extreme temperature changes within hours. Most remarkably, stress and hardship seem to make them stronger, not weaker." She displayed scans of human physiology, dense muscle fibers, efficient respiratory systems, and highly developed brains. "But the most important adaptation isn't physical," she continued. "It's psychological. Humans possess extraordinary mental flexibility. When faced with a problem, they try multiple solutions until something works. When one human discovers a solution, they share it with others. They call this innovation and cooperation." The council chamber filled with worried murmurs. High Counselor Zet raised his hand for silence. "What are your recommendations, Captain Rox?" Captain Rox looked around the chamber carefully before speaking. "These humans are unlike any species we've encountered. They're curious, adaptable, and surprisingly peaceful considering their harsh origins. But they're also resourceful in ways that might seem unsettling to our sensibilities." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "During our cultural exchange, I learned they have a history of conflict among themselves. Their technology developed rapidly because of these conflicts. Yet they also show remarkable capacity for compassion and cooperation." "Are they dangerous?" asked a delegate from the back. "Any species that survived a Class 15 Deathworld has capabilities we should respect," Rox answered diplomatically. "But I believe they seek friendship, not conquest." Security Director Vax, who had been silent until now, stood up. His 4 eyes narrowed as he addressed the council. "The fact remains that these humans have evolved under constant threat. Their entire psychology is built around overcoming challenges and enemies. What happens when they run out of natural threats and look outward?" The chamber grew quiet as everyone considered this disturbing thought. "I propose caution," Vax continued. "Limited contact, controlled information exchange, and continuous monitoring. At the first sign of aggression, we must be prepared to act." Captain Rox shook his head. "Such suspicion could create the very problem we fear. I've spent time with these humans. Yes, they're different, but they value peace. Their harshness comes from their world, not their hearts." High Counselor Zet looked troubled. "We face an unprecedented situation. A species forged by conditions we consider impossible, possessing adaptability we cannot match. The question before this council is not just how to respond to humans now, but what their existence means for our future." The great chamber fell silent as the representatives of 1,000 peaceful worlds contemplated the implications of a species born from conflict and danger, and now reaching for the stars. The research vessel Explorer entered Earth orbit exactly 3 months after first contact. Unlike the massive Pathfinder this ship was smaller, designed specifically for scientific study. Its crew consisted of 12 specialists chosen for their expertise in various fields: biology, psychology, sociology, technology, and planetary science. Lead researcher Dav stood at the observation window, watching the blue planet spin below. He had volunteered for this mission despite the risks. As a member of the gentle Valny species, he was physically ill-suited for Earth's harsh conditions, but his curiosity outweighed his fear. "It's beautiful, in a terrifying way," he said to his assistant, Cora. "Beauty in terror. How very human of you to say," she replied with a soft clicking sound that indicated amusement. Their mission was clear: spend 6 Earth months living among humans, learning their ways, and reporting back to the Council. The fate of future relations between humans and the galactic community would depend on their findings. The landing craft touched down in an area humans called International Exchange Zone, a facility built specifically for the research team in a region called Switzerland. The humans had thoughtfully created living quarters that mimicked standard galactic environmental conditions while allowing for easy interaction. As the research team disembarked, they were greeted by their human liaison, Dr. Mike Wilson, a specialist in international relations who had been assigned to help them navigate human culture. "Welcome to Earth," he said, raising his hand in what they had learned was a greeting gesture. "We're honored to host the first official galactic research mission." Dav stepped forward on his 4 legs, his environmental suit humming softly. "We are grateful for your hospitality, Dr. Wilson. We look forward to learning about your people." The first weeks were spent acclimating and establishing research protocols, each specialist paired with human counterparts in their field. Dav focused on human adaptability, the trait that most fascinated the galactic community. One morning, he sat with Dr. Wilson, watching a human sporting event on a viewing screen. "I don't understand," Dav said. "These humans are deliberately racing up a mountain, for no reason but to see who is fastest." Dr. Wilson nodded. "It's called a marathon. It's a test of endurance and will. But why? There's no predator chasing them, no food to be gained. Just pain and effort." "That's exactly it," Wilson explained. "Humans need challenges. When our environment doesn't provide them, we create them ourselves." Dav made notes in his datapad. Artificial challenge seeking. Fascinating. The following week, Dav accompanied Dr. Wilson to a human school. Young humans of varying ages were engaged in diverse activities, some solving mathematical problems, others playing physical games, still others creating art or music. "Your offspring training is remarkably varied," Dav observed. Wilson smiled. "We're not just teaching them facts. We're teaching them how to think, how to solve problems, how to work together, and how to express themselves. All skills for survival on a death world," Dav noted. "We don't see it that way," Wilson replied. "We're preparing them for life, not just survival." That evening, Dav experienced his first Earth storm. Thunder shook the research facility, and lightning flashed across the sky. The other members of his team retreated to the inner chambers, but Dav stood at the reinforced window, watching. "Aren't you afraid?" asked Dr. Wilson, who had stayed with him. "Terrified," admitted Dav. "But I'm beginning to understand something important about humans." "What's that?" "You don't just endure your world's dangers, you find beauty in them. You celebrate the very forces that should destroy you." Dav turned all 4 eyes toward the human. "That's what makes you different from us. We built our civilizations to eliminate threats. You built yours to face them." Dr. Wilson looked thoughtful. "I never considered it that way. To us, it's just life." "And that," said Dav, turning back to watch the storm, "is what the Council needs to understand. Your strength isn't just in your bodies or technology. It's in how you see the universe." Outside, the lightning flashed again, illuminating a world that had forged humanity through fire and ice, through storm and quake, a crucible that had produced something unique in the galaxy. The diplomatic meeting was supposed to be routine. After 6 months of research, the Galactic Council had approved limited cultural exchange programs. Today, representatives from 5 alien civilizations gathered at the International Exchange Zone to discuss educational initiatives. No one expected trouble. Lead researcher Dav entered the conference room alongside Dr. Wilson. The human looked tired but optimistic. They had worked for weeks preparing this proposal for student exchanges between Earth and friendly worlds. "I believe we're making real progress," Dr. Wilson said as they took their seats. Dav nodded, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Your young ones will bring fresh perspective to our academic institutions. Both sides will benefit." The meeting began smoothly. Representatives from the gentle Valny, the crystalline Torth, the gas-based Muri, and the aquatic gel presented their educational systems. Human educators explained Earth's diverse learning approaches. No one noticed the small device beneath the table until it was too late. A sharp crack echoed through the room. Purple gas began pouring from the device, filling the air with poisonous vapor. The aliens panicked. The gas was a neurotoxin deadly to most galactic species. "Everyone out," shouted Security Officer Ben Jones, rushing toward the door. But it wouldn't open. They were locked in. The Torth representative collapsed first, her crystalline form clouding over. The Valny delegation began gasping, their respiratory systems failing. Dav stumbled, fighting to reach his emergency breather. Through blurring vision, he saw something unexpected. The humans weren't collapsing. Dr. Wilson ripped his shirt off, soaked it in water from a pitcher, and tied it around his face. Other humans did the same. While the aliens struggled for breath, the humans organized. "Break the windows," ordered Jones, grabbing a chair and smashing it against the reinforced glass. 2 other humans joined him, pounding until cracks appeared. Dr. Wilson and a medical officer moved among the fallen aliens, checking vital signs and applying emergency oxygen. "Who would do this?" Dav managed to ask through his breather. "Anti-alien extremists," Dr. Wilson answered grimly. "We have them too." The window finally shattered. Fresh air rushed in, dispersing the poison. Security forces arrived minutes later, bringing medical teams. Later, in the emergency medical facility, Dav learned the full story. A small human faction opposed to alien contact had planted the bomb, expecting to kill all non-humans in the room. "They didn't account for us," Dr. Wilson explained from the next bed, his voice hoarse from the gas. "They thought we'd be as affected as you. But the toxin, similar to chemicals we've dealt with before. Not pleasant, but not immediately deadly to us. We've evolved resistance to many poisons." Dav's data pad lay on the table beside him. With a trembling limb, he reached for it and began recording. Human adaptive response to crisis situation. Noteworthy efficiency in emergency reaction. Physical resilience to toxins exceeding all expectations. Social cohesion under threat. Immediate organization into problem-solving units without central command. Dr. Wilson listened with a small smile. "You're still researching even now." "This incident proves something I've suspected," Dav replied. "Your Deathworld didn't just make humans physically strong. It created a species that thrives in crisis." The hospital room door opened. Captain Rox entered, looking concerned. "The Council is demanding answers," he said. "Some delegates are calling for withdrawal from Earth. They say it's too dangerous." Dr. Wilson sat up straighter. The attackers were a tiny minority. Most humans support peaceful contact. "I know," Rox replied. "But fear is spreading. The Council doesn't understand how a species can contain both those who would commit such acts and those who would risk their lives for strangers." Dav looked from Rox to Wilson, then made his decision. "I will testify before the Council," he said firmly. "Humans aren't just Deathworlders. They're complex beings shaped by their world, but not defined by it. Their capacity for both harm and healing comes from the same source: their adaptability." Outside the window, Earth's sun was setting, casting golden light across the facility. A beautiful world of deadly extremes, just like the species it had created. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as High Counselor Zet activated the central display. Above the assembly, a holographic projection showed a massive asteroid tumbling through space on a collision course with a small blue planet. "This object will strike Earth in exactly 47 days, Zet announced. Our calculations indicate it will cause an extinction-level event. The human ambassador, James Foster, stood calmly as murmurs spread through the alien delegates. "And you're just telling us this now?" he asked, his voice even. Zet's 4 hands moved in a formal gesture of apology. "We only detected it yesterday. It was hidden in the shadow of your outer planets." Ambassador Foster nodded, his face showing little emotion. "What assistance can Earth expect from the Galactic Council?" An uncomfortable silence followed. Finally, Security Director Vax stood. "The Council has voted," he said. "By law, we cannot intervene in natural planetary events. This is especially true for Class 15 Deathworlds." Foster's eyes narrowed slightly. "I see. So Earth faces this alone." "It is not personal," Vax continued. "This policy has existed for 10,000 years. The natural development of planets must proceed without interference." What the security director didn't say, what everyone in the room knew, was that many council members secretly saw this as a convenient solution to the human problem. A natural disaster would eliminate the unpredictable Deathworlders without requiring direct action. Ambassador Foster bowed slightly. "I understand. Earth will handle this matter ourselves." He turned and left the chamber without another word. Captain Rox caught up with him in the corridor. "Ambassador, wait. This isn't right." Foster stopped. "It's exactly what I expected, Captain. Some of your people have feared us from the beginning." "Not all of us," Rox insisted. "I've been monitoring communications. Earth has no technology capable of diverting an asteroid of that size." Foster smiled slightly. "We're well aware of our limitations, Captain. But Deathworlders don't give up easily." 3 weeks later, the Council received an unexpected message. Earth was launching a mission to intercept the asteroid. The attempt seemed futile. Their spacecraft were primitive, their weapons inadequate. Yet they were trying. Captain Rox requested permission to observe the human effort. Against the Council's recommendation, he positioned the Pathfinder near the asteroid's trajectory. What followed amazed even him. 5 small human ships approached the massive rock. Instead of weapons, they carried huge solar reflectors. Positioning themselves strategically, they focused the sun's energy on one side of the asteroid, gradually heating the surface. "They're attempting to alter its course through thermal expansion," Rox explained to his crew. "Clever, but insufficient." When that approach showed limited results, the humans switched tactics. They landed on the asteroid itself, a maneuver so dangerous that Rox's crew gasped as they watched. "They're drilling into the surface," reported Science Officer Mick. "They're placing explosive devices." The humans retreated to a safe distance, then detonated their charges. A section of the asteroid broke away, the force subtly altering its trajectory. For 20 days, the humans repeated this process, landing, drilling, blasting, measuring, adjusting. The Council watched with increasing amazement as the primitive creatures from a Deathworld refused to accept their fate. On the 46th day, measurements confirmed what seemed impossible. The asteroid would miss Earth by a narrow margin. In an emergency session, the Council struggled to process what they had witnessed. "They succeeded using technology centuries behind ours," Counselor Lima said. "How?" Lead researcher Dav, who had studied humans extensively, answered. "Because they had no other choice. Humans don't accept inevitable doom. They fight against it. That's how they survived their Deathworld for thousands of years. They treat obstacles not as endings, but as problems to be solved." High Counselor Zet looked troubled. "This changes everything. A species with such determination, such refusal to surrender, could be the greatest ally the galaxy has ever known," Captain Rox finished, "or the most dangerous enemy. The choice, I suspect, is ours to make." The observation deck of the Galactic Central Station offered the best view in the sector. From here, one could see the swirling blue-green planet Earth alongside the massive construction project that had been underway for the past year. High Counselor Zet stood with his hands clasped behind his back, all four eyes fixed on the scene. Beside him, Ambassador James Foster watched with quiet pride as human and alien workers moved together in the vacuum of space, assembling the first joint human galactic spaceport. "I never thought I would see this day," Zet admitted. "When we first discovered your world, many believed contact with humans would bring only danger." Foster nodded. "And many humans feared aliens would try to conquer or destroy us. Old survival instincts die hard." The asteroid incident had changed everything. What the Council had intended as a test, or perhaps even a convenient elimination of a problem, had instead revealed humanity's greatest strengths: innovation under pressure, refusal to accept defeat, and the ability to achieve the impossible through sheer determination. "The Joint Space Academy opens next month," Foster said, changing the subject. "We already have 5,000 applicants from Earth and 700 from various Council worlds." Zet made a sound that translated as approval. "Your people will teach survival skills, emergency response, and crisis management. Our people will share advanced technology, xenobiology, and faster-than-light travel theory." "A fair exchange," Foster replied. "We each bring what the other lacks." Below them, a small transport ship docked at the station. Captain Rox emerged, accompanied by lead researcher Dav and Dr. Mike Wilson. "The exploration team has returned," Zed observed. "Their mission to the Dracon Nebula was successful, I hear." Foster smiled. "The first of many. Who better to explore dangerous regions than those born on a Deathworld?" The three newcomers joined them on the observation deck. Dr. Wilson looked tired but excited. "The nebula contained exactly what we predicted. Rare isotopes formed only under extreme pressure and radiation," he reported. "The human crew handled the dangerous conditions, while our galactic colleagues analyzed and collected the samples." Captain Rox nodded. "The mission succeeded because of our differences, not despite them. Humans went where the rest of us could not safely go. We provided the knowledge to make their bravery meaningful." Lead researcher Dav activated a small device, projecting images of the nebula mission. "We've updated the class system," he explained. "Earth is still classified as a Class 15 Deathworld, but the term has been redefined. It's no longer just a warning label. It's a recognition of the unique evolutionary pressures that created humanity." The images shifted to show other harsh worlds throughout the galaxy. "We've identified 27 other Class 10 or higher planets with potential for intelligent life development," Dav continued. "Using what we've learned from humans, we can now predict how these environments might shape their inhabitants and prepare for peaceful contact if life emerges there," Zet added. A group of human children ran past them, chasing a floating educational drone shaped like a traditional alien thought to exist in human mythology. Behind them walked alien youngsters, moving more carefully but just as curious. "The first generation that will grow up knowing we're not alone in the universe," Foster said, watching them. "They'll take for granted what we found so challenging." Dr. Wilson laughed. "But they'll find their own challenges. That's the human way, and perhaps now, the galactic way too." As the station rotated, Earth came into view again. From here, it looked peaceful, its deadly storms and tectonic activities hidden beneath swirling clouds and blue oceans. A beautiful Deathworld that had forged humanity through millions of years of challenges and crises. "We still don't fully understand each other," High Counselor Zet said quietly. "But perhaps that's as it should be. The unknown is where growth happens." On that, Ambassador Foster replied, "Humans and aliens can completely agree." Below them, the first joint human-alien starship prepared for launch, ready to carry the combined strengths of Deathworlders and their new allies into the waiting stars.